My name is Thomas Sharp, and this video reviews a small segment of a research project which I began in graduate school in 2008. But before I begin, I want to take a minute to articulate three characteristics of this project which I believe are unique not only to this competition, but to the field of kinetic architecture as it is today. First, the kinetic movement of this project is not scaled to an individual level. As with most responsive technology, architectural prototypes of this sort are often posited as solutions to individual problems on an individual scale. But by contrast, this project is governed by the larger scale activities of the site. Traffic patterns, human behavior, and daylight conditions provide the impetus for change. This approach connects individual occupants to the larger context created by the totality of people and situations around them. Second, this project is not simply a geometrical exercise in the recomposition of discrete elements. While many kinetic spaces are obviously precedented by the Japanese tradition of tatami, this project builds upon the work of Nicholas Negroponte and Buckminster Fuller in creating a holistic kinetic system in which all discrete elements find themselves connected to one another through a framework of rules and parameters. The result is, then, an orchestration of architectural form rather than a random and ever-changing configuration of pieces. Last, and most importantly, this project is not about aesthetics. Rather, it seeks to explore new methods of design thinking which responsive systems demand. Design is no longer about singular statements from static elevations, but rather it is a longer narrative told through kinetic systems. Le Corbusier said that form follows function, but now form has to follow function through time. So as a result, architecture begins to resemble performance more than a visual art. To explore these issues, I chose a relatively common building type in the American suburbs, the commuter rail station. Rail stations naturally have a strong quantitative and qualitative value change throughout a given day. So in searching for a departure point on which to base a kinetic narrative, I quickly realized that many changes of the site occur in predictable, periodic cycles. So of course, while there are a myriad of potential cycles on any given site, I selected three which had a strong narrative power and strength in the human experience of the site. Transit patterns, human behavior, and solar positions then became the pillars for my architectural narrative. As soon as these chapters, so to speak, of the narrative were established, it became vitally important to collect as much data about each as possible. I collected data from both a local context, that is, the municipal and transit data from the prototype site, which is in Naperville, Illinois, as well as the global context, including human behavioral statistics from the U.S. Census Bureau and weather data from the National Weather Center. In kinetic architecture, each layer of data adds a finer grain to the story, and in this case feeds directly into the production of form via computer scripts and algorithms. Once this data was collected, it was represented spatially and temporally to better understand the appropriate correlations and associations within it. Now it's important to note here that while new parametric methods use raw data to generate form, it is still the responsibility of the designer to compose data into meaningful relationships. And so this led to the formulation of three observations. The first states that while there is an equal volume of commuters in the morning and evening, the morning period includes periods of waiting before the train arrives. This leads to a demand of much more required floor space in the morning and less in the evening. The second states that according to statistics, commuters engage in only momentary programmatic elements in the morning, but extended activities in the evening. The types of activities change as well, with a steady increase in leisure and dining activities as the day progresses. Thirdly, the solar position constantly changes throughout the day. So there's potential to capitalize on this change to provide a dramatically different experience for commuters who occupy the station at various times of the day, or for commuters who arrive in the morning and leave in the evening. So after these observations had been made on this collected data, it was time to start researching and developing the means to actually enact a kinetic space. The second third of my research then was thus devoted to the study of structural systems. And in the end, I developed a sound and coherent and representable structural system composed of tensegrity modules. Tensegrity systems are usually composed of a layer of compressive members sandwiched between layers of tensile ones. But the most relevant attribute of tensegrities is that when some of their members, usually their tensile ones, are replaced with actuators, they become kinetic components capable of sending and receiving information with distributed processors, computers, and humans. For this project, I chose a 2-strut Class 3 module because it is the simplest type of tensegrity. This will allow room for my other architectural elements to be attached. Beginning from the structure itself, I have designed a layered architectural membrane. First, a tessellated pattern of deployable canvases are attached to the outside of the tensegrity system. These canvases extend relative to the direction of the sun at their respective positions. They then correspond to the daylighting chapter or observation of the narrative, which I explained previously. Next, an optional vapor retarder can be attached to create a plenum out of the membrane for passive heating and cooling and weather protection. Finally, the exterior is wrapped in extreme fabric mullions. These mullions serve to protect the material and mechanical equipment underneath inside the membrane and provide a preliminary aesthetic to the exterior. So the result of this design is a holistic system capable of application in a variety of architectural situations. The structure itself responds to data input and can change form based on that input, and the canvases within that structure react to the sun as it moves across the sky. So, taking this structural invention, I next applied it to a prototypical commuter rail station. First, I returned to each observation and transposed it into kinetic building elements. To address the first observation, the available floor space in the station decreases throughout the day in accordance with the changing volume of waiting passengers. So as the need for floor space decreases throughout the day, areas of the floor which were previously devoted to seating rise up and introduce new programmatic elements while reducing the floor space. The second observation, which focused on the appropriateness of program activities at certain times of the day, is addressed through the introduction of these new elements. By the evening rush hour, 8 restaurants, 3 retail stores, and 2 leisure venues have been introduced onto the station floor. Lastly, as the sun moves across the sky, its color, temperature, and position change. The third observation is addressed by the system of deployable canvases which I mentioned earlier. These canvases do not simply eliminate glare, they also create gradiated patterns of solid and void which move across the station to provide a rich sense of time and orientation. The glowing light which seeps through the canvases provides a continually changing ambience, from a sort of soft blue during the morning rush to a warm yellow as commuters rise from the tracks in the evening. So the combined effect of these 3 transformations results in a metamorphosis. Views, lighting, program, and square footage have all transformed to meet the returning commuter in a particular time at a particular place. So to sum this project up, it is not about using conventional mechanics to perform a singular task. Rather, it is about utilizing a new method of design necessitated by kinetic architecture. Finally, and most importantly, it is not about flexibility as an end in itself. Kinetic architecture must be more than just movement for movement's sake. It must lead us to new understandings of ourselves and of ourselves in relation to each other, and of ourselves in relation to our natural environment. Only then can it move from being simply kinetic to interactive. So that's my project. Thank you for watching.